Since the dawn of humanity, men have sought power, the power to rule, to conquer, to transform the world around them. But there was one who revealed a different path, a power that does not enslave, but sets free. That power is the method of Christ, the sacred science of ruling with love. In these pages you will discover that true mastery does not arise from force or self-will, but from the spiritual understanding that unites the human mind with the divine mind. Emmet Fox, with luminous clarity, unveils how Christ did not come to establish a religion, but to reveal a universal technique of inner transformation, one capable of changing every thought, every emotion, and every circumstance of your life. Prepare to enter the mystery of the love that governs the universe, and to see how that love can heal, prosper, and uplift everything it touches. For when you rule with love, you do not impose your will. You manifest the will of God, and in that sacred moment, the entire world aligns with you. We live in a world fascinated by brute force, in a time where authority seems to belong to those who raise their voices the loudest, to those who fear losing control the most. Power is mistaken for imposition, leadership for domination, discipline for punishment. Generation after generation, humanity has venerated hardness, threat, and repression, stubbornly believing that without fear there is no order, that without punishment there is no learning, that without force there is no respect. And yet, if all of this were true, history should be a flourishing garden. It is not. Where fear rules, only rebellion and resentment bloom. Where violence prevails, the cycle of wound and pain perpetuates itself. Here I propose a revolutionary thesis, as old as it is forgotten. True power does not come from force. It comes from love. Genuine spiritual authority is the opposite of domination. It is silent strength, unyielding tenderness, clarity without violence. Jesus was the greatest leader in history, and he never raised his fist. His authority needed no throne, no army. He called forth the light with the faith of one who knows that truth requires no defense. Susi was just as firm as he was gentle. His discipline was loving, his correction uplifting. So why does humanity insist on hardness, violence, and punishment? Because every act of hardness is a ritual disguised as fear. Violence is not strength, it is fragility. Punishment is not power, it is panic at the loss of control. Thus, the ego builds its kingdom on quicksand, and every law founded on fear is a seed of rebellion. Those who rule through fear do not earn respect. They only achieve a false authority and accumulated resentment. Here lies the great paradox. Perfect love, far from being weakness, is the greatest power of all. So teaches Scripture. There is no fear in love, but perfect love drives out fear. 1 John 4:18. Where love exists, there is no room for fear, and where there is no fear, there is no need to subdue, humiliate, or dominate. Love builds bridges where fear erects walls. Love inspires willing obedience, where fear only breeds pretense. And look at history. Leaders who ruled with fear in the family, the school, the workplace, or the nation always created rebellion, duplicity, betrayal, and distance. Leaders who governed with love generated loyalty, trust, inspiration, and transformation. Lasting change never springs from threat, but from recognizing the good in others. Today begins a silent revolution, governing from the Christ within. This revolution needs no shouts, no flags. It seeks not to impose, but to inspire. It invites parents, teachers, bosses, leaders of all kinds to embrace the power that comes from love, to lay down the old weapons of fear, and to trust in the divine seed God has planted within every human being. I invite you then to question everything you have believed about authority, discipline, and governance. Prepare to discover that almost everything has been upside down. Open your heart and mind to the possibility of a life and a world governed not by fear, but by perfect love. This is how the true revolution begins, governing with love, based on the teachings of Emmet Fox. We've noticed that over 80% of those who visit our channel are not subscribed. You can support this project by pressing the subscribe button and liking the video. Thank you for inspiring us to continue creating more and better content for you. Are you ready to transform your life? Chapter 1. Perfect love drives out fear, the foundation of all authority. The root of all true authority, the solid foundation upon which any legitimate power rests, is perfect love. This statement, seemingly simple, conceals a mystery that the human mind has only just begun to glimpse. For what does the world understand by power? Is it not synonymous with force, the ability to impose one's will on others, to inspire fear? Humanity has walked this path for centuries. Rulers, parents, teachers, leaders of every kind have believed that their authority strengthens in proportion to how feared they are. And yet Scripture declares with the serene voice of one who knows, perfect love drives out fear. 1 John 4:18. This verse, repeated so often without understanding, is the master key to governance, the secret doorway to true influence. Observe the mechanism of fear. Analyze it carefully as one might disassemble an ancient lock to understand its inner springs. Fear is the belief that evil can triumph, that loss is possible, that we are at the mercy of a force outside of good. Every system of governance based on fear rests, even if it hides it, on the deep conviction that the world is dangerous and that human beings are fundamentally incapable of responding to good without the pressure of threat. Why do parents shout or threaten? Because deep down they fear losing control, fear disobedience, fear being insufficient. Why does the boss resort to punishment? Because he suspects his employees will respond only under threat. Why does the politician manipulate? Because he distrusts the essential goodness of the community he governs. Whenever fear is the tool, there is fear in the hand that wields it. But the mental law is unbreakable. Fear begets fear. Love begets love. No human decree can alter this principle. Just as an apple seed can only yield apples, a thought rooted in fear can only harvest fear in those who receive it. A child who obeys out of fear obeys only in appearance. Secretly, their heart hardens or rebels. An employee who acts from fear fulfills the letter, not the spirit. A people who follow through fear seek escape at the earliest opportunity. Fear may buy temporary compliance, but it can never win the mind or the heart. It is a clay authority, destined to crumble once the pressure is removed. Where, then, does the power of love come from? Is it not a form of weakness? This is the great illusion humanity must dispel. Perfect love is not sentimentality or permissiveness. It is not closing one's eyes to error or allowing oneself to be trampled. Perfect love is the clear awareness that good is the only reality, upheld by God, by principle, by intelligence, by life itself, and calls each creature to manifest its divine nature. To govern with love is to appeal not to fear, but to the Christ within every person. It is to look beyond appearances and see, even in the rebel or the wayward, the divine spark waiting to awaken. Jesus was the supreme example of authority without hardness. Did he instill fear in his disciples? Did he keep them in line with threats of punishment? Observe how he corrected, taught, and governed. He always saw the possibility of redemption, never condemnation. To Peter, who denied him, he did not throw his weakness in his face, but entrusted him with the shepherding of his sheep. To the woman caught in adultery, he did not humiliate her, but restored her to dignity. And when firmness was necessary, his authority arose from truth, not intimidation. For only one who is free from fear can be truly firm. The one who fears must raise their voice, punish, harden themselves. The one who loves remains serene and therefore irresistible. Let me illustrate this with a simple parable. A farmer had 2 guard dogs. He trained the first with shouts and blows, the second with patience and reward. The first obeyed out of fear of punishment, the second out of trust in his owner's care. One day the gate was left open and danger approached. Which dog responded to the call? Only the one who obeyed out of love remained faithful. So it is with human souls. Now you may wonder, is it really possible to govern solely with love? Isn't the world too hostile? Aren't people too selfish? Aren't children too unruly? Such doubt is natural. For centuries we have been trained in fear, but observe your own experience. Isn't it true that when someone trusts you, when you are genuinely perceived, an unexpected force rises within you, a desire to respond, to reciprocate, to excel? That is the creative power of love. You don't need to take my word for it, test it in your daily life. For 24 hours, strive to govern your home, your work, your relationship with yourself, without a single threat, without a single intimidation. Speak only from love. Affirm in your mind, my power comes from love, not from fear. You will discover, perhaps with amazement, that people begin to respond differently. The atmosphere shifts. Resentment yields to trust. Obedience ceases to be forced and becomes voluntary collaboration. I invite you to a sincere self-examination. Ask yourself, do I govern by love or by fear? In what areas of my life do I still resort to intimidation? What hidden fears drive my need to control? Every time you notice yourself using fear as a tool, pause and trace its origin within your own heart. You will see that behind every threat lies a fear of your own waiting to be healed. When you acknowledge it, offer that fear to God. Ask to be freed from the need to control and affirm, "Within me dwells perfect love that drives out all fear." Remember, fear is a mental fog, an illusion born from the belief in separation. Perfect love is clarity, certainty in good. When your mind is established in love, everything else flows in harmony. Authority born of love is the only kind that endures, because it depends not on external vigilance, but on inner awakening. Human history is full of examples of leaders who ruled by fear, only to harvest rebellion, isolation, or failure. But there are also rare examples of those who, rooted in love, transformed nations, families, businesses, and hearts. The revolution the world awaits will not come by force, but by the silent radiance of those who have learned to govern from the Christ within. Every time you choose love over fear, you become part of this silent revolution. Allow this message to penetrate the depths of your being. Do not believe it merely because you read it here. Test its truth in your own life. Perfect love, which is God acting in you, can and must be the foundation of all authority. When you grasp this, the promise is fulfilled within you. I will never leave you nor forsake you. Hebrews 13:5. For in God's love there is no shadow of fear, and where fear is absent, authority flourishes effortlessly. Obedience is natural, transformation is permanent. Close your eyes for a moment and repeat silently, "Within me dwells perfect love. Perfect love drives out all fear. It governs my life, my words, and my actions. I release fear. I release the need to control. I trust the Christ within every person. My authority is born of love." So it is, because so it is in God. Make this prayer your anchor, your shield, and your banner. In time, you will see that all of life responds to the call of love, and everything else will be added to you. So it is, and so it shall be. Chapter 2. Firmness with Tenderness, the Art of Strong Love. Let us begin with a statement that may seem paradoxical. True strength is never harsh. The oak breaks in the storm. The flexible reed endures. So it is in the art of governing, correcting, or guiding. Hardness signals inner weakness, while firmness tinged with tenderness reveals the presence of Christ in action. Here lies one of the deepest and most overlooked secrets of spiritual governance. One can and should be firm without ever ceasing to be tender. Many people still confuse firmness with severity, authority with harshness, leadership with punishment. They mistakenly believe that to maintain order, one must raise the voice, harden the face, instill fear. But observe nature. Soft, persistent water sculpts stone without violence. The hidden, silent seed breaks the earth's crust without a sound. Such is the power of strong love. It acts, transforms, and sets boundaries without ever resorting to violence or threat. Authentic firmness does not need to disguise itself as harshness. A limit is an act of clarity, not aggression. Saying no with perfect love is a spiritual art, learned only when the ego has been conquered by the higher vision of the Christ within. The ego shouts, imposes, denigrates, punishes. Christ speaks with serenity, holds the boundary, and protects the dignity of all involved. Let us distinguish then between a boundary and a threat. A boundary is a loving declaration of how far one may go without harming order and harmony. It says, "Here I am. This is my truth. This is my space, and I guard it because it is sacred." A threat, on the other hand, arises from fear and the desire to control. If you don't do this, I will do that. Threats sow resentment, boundaries sow respect. Can you recall a time in your life when someone said no to you without hurting you? Perhaps a teacher, without raising their voice or using harsh words, clearly indicated what was not allowed, yet looked you in the eye, acknowledged your value, and invited you to understand. Or maybe a friend, in a soft yet firm voice, showed you that certain behavior could no longer be tolerated. That no remained in your heart not as a wound, but as a sign of genuine love. Tenderness, far from being weakness, is the strength that springs from a secure soul. Only one who has conquered their inner fear can be infinitely gentle. The one who does not need to prove their power is the only one who can open their arms without fear of being hurt. Hardness is a shield hiding fragility. Firm tenderness is an invisible sword that separates error without wounding dignity. Jesus showed us the supreme model. Observe how he drove the merchants from the temple. He acted not with hatred or a desire to humiliate, but with the purifying energy of love, indignant at desecration. Yet the same Jesus who could be firm and clear washed his disciples' feet with humility and gentleness. Thus he teaches that true authority swings like a pendulum between firmness and tenderness, never losing its balance. Allow me now to teach you a practical formula, which I call the Fox formula for loving correction. 5 simple, powerful steps you can apply in any context. Breathe and quiet your mind before speaking. Do not allow anger to be your counselor. The ego seeks to react. Christ waits and responds. Identify the behavior, not the person. Say, for example, "That action is not acceptable," instead of "You are irresponsible." This protects dignity and opens the door to change. Explain the reason for the boundary. Love explains, it does not impose. I ask that you arrive on time because I value the harmony of this group. Explanation ignites inner understanding. Affirm your willingness to support growth. I am here to help you improve, not to punish you. The true leader is always a mentor, never an executioner. Close with a statement of faith in good. I know you can do better. I trust your ability. The leader's faith awakens faith in the other. Test this formula. Take a past situation in which you corrected with harshness. Rewrite it using these 5 steps. Notice how the atmosphere changes, how your message now reaches not just the mind, but the heart. Some phrases that communicate firmness without harshness and that you can practice according to context include, "This is not acceptable, yet you remain valuable to me. I cannot allow this behavior, and yet I wish to help you overcome it. I respect you too much to let this pass unspoken. Here is the limit, and if you choose to cross it, there will be consequences, but you will never lose my respect. I do not seek to punish you, but to help you understand." Take a moment to reflect. Have you ever mistaken permissiveness for love? Have you allowed harmful situations out of fear of appearing harsh? Remember, true love protects. It never leaves the other lost in their own mistakes. The parent who never sets boundaries is not loving, but fearful. The mother who allows everything out of fear of losing a child's affection sows insecurity instead of freedom. The leader who tolerates chaos, thinking this is understanding, ends up harvesting disorder. Being firm with tenderness requires more inner strength than any shout, punishment, or outburst. Tender firmness demands self-control, patience, and trust in the hidden good within every person. Do not fear saying no when necessary, but always do so from perfect love, not wounded pride or fear. Before any confrontation, follow this spiritual preparation. Christ in me, speak and act through me. Let my word be clear and my heart tender. Let me see the good hidden in every situation. Let every boundary I set be an expression of perfect love, never of fear or desire to dominate. Let my firmness build, never destroy, so it is and so it shall be. The consistent practice of setting boundaries without anger or threat transforms not only your relationships, but your own character. You will discover that the firmer and more tender you are, the less conflict you need to face, because strong love is felt even before it is expressed. The human soul instinctively recognizes authority born of the Christ within. One final warning, do not fall into the fatal error of believing that love means permitting everything. Love that sets no boundaries is not love. It is disguised indifference or masked fear. Love, like a skilled gardener, prunes when necessary so life may flourish. Close this chapter with a commitment prayer. Today I choose to be firm with tenderness. My strength is not harshness, my boundary is not a threat, my correction is not punishment. The Christ in me governs with strong, clear, and serene love. Thus I conduct myself, thus I guide, thus I transform. May every word I speak be a seed of order and a caress of tenderness. This is how perfect love governs and transforms. Chapter 3. Seeing Christ in all the vision that transforms. There is a secret door in the art of governing and transforming, a threshold that few dare to cross because it demands abandoning the most deeply ingrained habit of the human soul, judging by appearances. The supreme key to loving governance is not a technique, nor a formula of external behavior. It is a vision. It is seeing Christ in all, and doing so not as an abstract concept, but as a constant inner discipline, a practical law of life. But what does it truly mean to see Christ? It is not an empty statement, nor a superficial exercise in optimism. In the language of metaphysics, Christ is the individualized presence of God in every human being. It is the seed of perfection, the divine self, the immutable core of goodness that dwells even in the most lost, hardened, or mistaken soul. To see Christ is to look through the layers of error, ignorance, or pain, and discover the pure gold of spirit intact, even if it is but a tiny spark hidden beneath the dust of years. Some fear this vision is naive, or that practicing it risks ignoring evil or tolerating abuse. But seeing Christ does not mean denying wrongful behavior or failing to act with firmness when goodness demands it. Rather, it rejects the deception that external appearance, the passing mask of error, is the ultimate reality of the person. Just as you would not judge a book by its worn cover, nor discard a seed merely because it is covered in dirt, you must not take anyone at face value, but see the eternal potential God has planted in them. The mental law is clear. What you see in others, you awaken. When you look at a person and perceive only their error, misery, or clumsiness, you reinforce these conditions in their consciousness and in your own. The soul, feeling perceived as deficient, withdraws, descends, and closes the door to change. But when, even silently, your gaze penetrates beyond the error and recognizes the hidden good, the spiritual seed begins to germinate. This is how Christ works in the governor, the parent, the teacher, the friend. Observe Jesus, the supreme master of Christed vision. When he looked at Peter, he did not see only the rough fisherman, the impulsive one who would deny him 3 times. He saw the rock upon which an indestructible work would be built. He called forth the sleeping light and awakened it with his faith. Thus, many considered unworthy became living instruments of the kingdom, not because they earned that honor by human standards, but because someone saw them as God saw them. This vision is not a privilege of the few, it is a universal law. What you see in others, especially the difficult ones, begins to manifest. If you see incapacity, you reinforce incapacity. If you see guilt, the other feels guilty. But if you discipline yourself to see day after day the divine potential even in the most challenging, you begin to perform silent miracles. This requires practice and perseverance. At first your old mind will rebel. This is a liar, a traitor, ungrateful. Yet the truth is that beneath all that lies a being made in God's image, even if they have forgotten it. Practice this Christed vision with those who challenge you most. Choose a difficult person, perhaps someone who has disappointed, hurt, or simply irritated you. Imagine them as a newborn child, innocent, unscarred before being wounded by the world, before learning fear or aggression. In that pure image, greet the Christ in them. This is not a game of imagination. It is a transfer of your inner vision to the essential reality. The mind is powerful. What you hold as truth in your consciousness will sooner or later project into experience. The practice may feel uncomfortable at first, even painful. The judging mind, trained for years to point out error, will resist, but persist. Make this a daily discipline. When you meet anyone, at work, on the street, at home, repeat silently, "The Christ in me greets the Christ in you." Do this with strangers, with those who annoy you, with your oldest enemies. Do it especially with those you have secretly judged and condemned. The effect is twofold. First, your own vision is purified. You cease to be trapped by old resentments. You release the poison of criticism and judgment. Second, the other, even unconsciously, begins to respond differently. There is a mysterious spiritual law here. The gaze that sees the good summons the good. The transformation may not be instant or dramatic, but it occurs. I repeat, this is not pretending error does not exist nor condoning harmful behavior. It is trying to see beyond, to know that every wrongful action is a desperate cry of a soul that has forgotten its origin. It is like seeing a lost child. Do you condemn them for not finding their way home, or do you take their hand with the certainty that their true place is home? Perform a spiritual treatment when facing difficult people. Father, show me today the Christ in this soul. Help me see beyond appearances, to recognize the light you planted within them. May my vision call them to remember their truth. Let me not fall into the trap of judgment or condemnation, but of liberation. So it is, because so it is in God. Review yourself each night. How often did you manage to see Christ amid difficulty? Where did you stumble, reacting to the mask rather than the deeper reality? Do not blame yourself. Simply observe and decide to do better tomorrow. Spiritual progress is measured by the frequency and depth of your vision, not by unattainable perfection. Dare the radical exercise. Choose your oldest enemy, the one who seems farthest from the light, and dedicate 40 days of silent blessings each time they come to mind. The Christ in you is more real than your errors. The good in you is greater than your past. I see you free, whole, renewed. Keep track of changes, however small. Perhaps the other will not change externally immediately, but you will. And by changing your vision, the world changes with you. This is the vision that transforms. It does not deny problems, excuse the ego, but it never allows itself to be trapped by shadows. It is the vision of God acting through humanity. When a sufficient number of souls see Christ in all, the kingdom of God will be visible on earth. Let us close with a prayer of recognition. Christ in me, open my eyes to see you in every being I encounter. Make me an instrument of your vision, a channel of your love. Where I see guilt, let there be innocence. Where I see error, let me see potential. Where I see enmity, let there be harmony. Thus the world will be renewed because my vision is renewed. Make this vision my habit, my refuge, my power. For seeing Christ in all is the first step to awakening Christ within yourself, and only then do you truly govern, serve, and transform. Chapter 4. Correction without violence, the spiritual method. There is a threshold in spiritual life that not everyone wishes to cross because it demands forever abandoning the easy tools of the old world, shouting, threats, punishment, manipulation. But the truth is undeniable. Any form of violence, physical, verbal, emotional, or psychological, is the clearest testimony of the absence of love. Where perfect love exists, violence finds neither root nor justification. To govern, correct, educate, or guide through force, pain, or intimidation is to confess, consciously or unconsciously, that we have exhausted the resources of the spirit and fallen into the misery of the ego. Violence is never authentic strength. It is the refuge of the powerless. It is the last resort of one who has lost contact with the inner Christ and does not know how to inspire without imposing, how to correct without wounding. Just as a clumsy carpenter breaks wood because he does not master the art of shaping it, the soul that is unaware of the spiritual method resorts to violence in any of its forms, out of pure inability to lift the other with love. Therefore, every time a ritual of coercion appears, every time a threat is uttered, every time sarcasm or guilt replaces clear dialogue, we are witnessing an act of spiritual defeat. Do you think violence is only about blows? Wake up and observe how many invisible forms it can take. A humiliating word, a silence that excludes, a look of contempt, subtle irony that cuts deeper than any lash. Sarcasm is violence. Emotional manipulation, the art of sowing guilt to gain obedience, is violence. Sentimental blackmail, constant pressure, deliberate indifference, veiled threats, all are violence, and all are admissions of spiritual failure. The ego justifies itself with 1,000 reasons. I do it for their good. They cannot understand otherwise. This is the only way they will change. But all of this is just a disguise for fear. The fear of losing control, the fear that the other will not change, the fear of our own insufficiency. Perfect love never needs violence because its authority is invisible, magnetic, unshakable. The inner Christ does not need to raise a voice or employ force to transform. Its mere presence orders and heals. Violence may achieve temporary obedience, but it never brings genuine conversion. A child who is punished learns to fear, not to understand. An employee who is humiliated learns to hide, not to grow. A loved one who is manipulated learns to resent, not to love. Every act of violence engenders hidden resentment, desire for revenge, or feigned submission. Real transformation never blooms from it, only appearances. The fundamental question is, do you want to change behaviors, or do you want to transform the person? If your aim is merely control, violence will serve you, but at a very high price: loss of trust, closure of the heart, and perpetuation of fear. If you truly wish to guide, you must embrace non-violence as an unshakable method. How then can we correct without violence? Begin with an honest personal inventory. What subtle forms of violence do you still use? Do you shout, manipulate, sow guilt, exclude, punish with silence? Write them down. Acknowledge them without fear, for only those who recognize can transform. Next, practice substitution for each identified form of violence. Find a loving alternative. You tend to shout? Replace the shout with a pause and conscious breathing. You use sarcasm? Replace mockery with calm explanation. You threaten artificial consequences? Explain the natural consequences of actions without adding emotional charge. Remember, the difference between consequence and punishment is radical. A consequence is natural law acting. It is life teaching. Punishment is the imposition of pain out of desire for revenge or control. Teaching consequences is guiding, punishing is dominating. Make a radical commitment. 30 days without any form of violence. No shouting, no threats, no sarcasm. Does it seem impossible? That only reveals how accustomed we have become to violence as the norm. Choose to practice the pause every time the impulse to react harshly arises. Stop. Breathe. Remember that love is stronger than any passing emotion. If necessary, step away before responding. The spiritual preparation before any correction should be, Christ in me, calm my heart. Allow me to see this person as you see them. Give me words that heal, not wound. Give me firmness without harshness, understanding without submission. Let my correction be a channel of your wisdom. So it is, and so it shall be. Use the technique of correction through understanding. Seek to help the other comprehend the consequences of their actions rather than suffer for them. Ask, listen, explain, give examples, tell stories, dialogue. The goal is comprehension, not blind obedience. Nonviolent educational methods are proven and effective. Nonviolent communication, positive discipline, silent example, reflective questioning, experiment, test, adapt. Always remember, perfect love never needs to hurt to teach. Do not fall for the old excuse, but it is necessary. Every justification for violence is the voice of a frightened ego. The inner Christ never needs violence to govern, for its authority is undeniable, gentle, firm, immovable, and peaceful. At the end of each day, reflect, where did you manage to correct without violence? Where did you fall into the old trap? Do not punish yourself. Simply decide to do better tomorrow. Day by day, violence will disappear from your life like fog before the sun. Conclude with this commitment prayer. Today I renounce all forms of violence. I choose the power of love, the clarity of understanding, the authority that elevates rather than humiliates. May every word and every silence honor the dignity of others. Thus I correct, thus I guide, thus I educate. Amen. When violence disappears, true authority flourishes. This is how Christ governs in you and through you. Make non-violence your standard, your practice, and your legacy. No act of violence will ever leave a trace of love. Only the spiritual method builds what is eternal. Chapter 5. Reviewing judgments, clearing the vision. To govern with love requires a vision as clear as crystal, free from dust and distortion, capable of reflecting only the light of the inner Christ. Yet there is a silent enemy, always lurking in the shadows of the mind, judgment. To judge is the opposite of love. Every judgment we make, even in secret, closes the door to love and sows the seed of separation. What is judgment? It is not simply observing a fact or discerning truth from falsehood. Condemnatory judgment is that mental act by which, having observed, we issue sentences on the value or dignity of a person. We say, this one is incapable, that one is selfish, that one will never change, and in doing so, we build an invisible wall. Where there is judgment, love cannot flourish. Where there is condemnation, spiritual governance becomes mental tyranny. Discernment is seeing clearly, distinguishing between what is useful and what is not, between truth and falsehood, between what builds up and what destroys. Discernment is necessary for life. Judgment is unnecessary and always harmful. Discernment observes without binding. Judgment binds and separates. You may wonder what harm a secret judgment, a silent opinion can do, more than you imagine. Every judgment you make becomes a chain that imprisons both you and the other. When you judge, you are mentally tied to the image you have created. You cannot see Christ in the one you have judged. You cannot hope for the best from someone you have condemned for the worst. Judgment closes the door to transformation. not only in the other but first in yourself. The mental mechanics of judgment are simple yet devastating. When you judge, you build a wall that isolates the other and simultaneously separates you from your own good. The soul cannot genuinely love the one who judges, nor be loved by one who feels judged. Judgment is a small self-imposed exile. Therefore, the daily practice of reviewing judgments is the most powerful tool to clear vision and prepare the ground for true loving governance. It is not enough to decide not to judge. You must unmask, one by one, the judgments made throughout the day until the old habit is dismantled. Here is the Fox Protocol for nightly judgment review, which I ask you to practice for 15 minutes each night, like washing your hands before entering the temple. Begin in silence. Review your day from the first encounter to the last. Who did you judge? Why? What inner phrases crossed your mind? Make a list, even if it causes discomfort. Remember, the goal is not self-blame, but cleansing. For each judgment, identify its nature. Was it about ability, foolishness, kindness, morality, appearance, or intention? Leave none out. Ask yourself, does this judgment bring me closer to or separate me from the other? Does it make me feel loving or superior? Recognize that every judgment is a barrier to love. Now practice reframing. Find a compassionate reason, a possible explanation, a different story. For example, if you judge someone for being late, imagine the invisible burdens they may carry. If you judge someone for coldness, remember that coldness is often a shield for old wounds. Say a brief prayer of forgiveness for each judgment. I forgive this judgment. I choose to see Christ in you. I renounce my need to condemn. I release and bless. Feel the chain loosen, the door open. Close with an affirmation of love. Only love sees clearly. I see beyond appearances. My vision is clean. My heart is free. Practicing this nightly will begin to dismantle the very structure of judgment in your mind. Soon you will catch yourself judging and stop in the moment before the chain closes. Then, the suspension of judgment, not for a day nor for an hour, but for the present moment, becomes possible. Also practice identifying all judgments in a single day. Keep a small hidden notebook and write down each time your mind slides toward condemnation. At the end of the day, read the list. Not to shame yourself, but to awaken compassion for your own humanity. The act of observing is already half redemption. Remember the teacher's instruction. Do not judge and you will not be judged. Meditate on this, not as a threat, but as law. What you give in thought will be returned to you. Sow acceptance, and you will reap acceptance. Sow understanding, and you will reap understanding. Transforming judgments into compassionate perceptions is the art of seeing with God's eyes, looking beyond error, recognizing fear, pain, and ignorance as passing clouds before the sun of the inner Christ. Make suspension of judgment a radical practice. Try an entire day without issuing a single internal sentence. It will not be easy. You will discover how deep the habit runs, but you will also experience, even for brief moments, the freedom and peace of a clear mind. Close this chapter with a renewal prayer. Father, cleanse me of all judgment. Grant me discernment without condemnation, clarity without pride, vision without chains. Let my mind be a mirror of perfect love, so that I may govern only from a pure heart. So it is, and so it shall be. Remember, you cannot govern with love while holding condemning judgments. Reviewing judgments is the soul's broom. Sweep every night and the light will enter without obstruction. Make this practice your secret discipline, your daily alchemy. Thus, the governance of your life and those in your care will be a pure reflection of God's kingdom, where the only law is love. Chapter 6. Blessing those who disagree, the revolutionary practice. Here lies the pinnacle of spiritual governance, the threshold that only the brave of soul dare cross, blessing those who oppose, contradict, or attack. There is no more decisive test, no more transformative practice. Here the ego reveals itself in all its force, and here the inner Christ shows its invincible power. Blessing the adversary is not sentimentality or weakness. It is pure spiritual science. It is the master key of love that can do all things. Many have misunderstood this command of Jesus. Bless those who curse you. Pray for those who persecute you. Misguided moral advice, a call to resignation or passivity, has distorted its meaning. Nothing could be further from the truth. Blessing those who disagree is not relinquishing justice, nor surrendering the field to falsehood. It is, in reality, exercising the greatest power a human being can wield, the power to transform relationships, the atmosphere, and even the very nature of conflict through the law of mind. Why is blessing enemies spiritual science? Because the mind, at its deepest level, is creative. What you mentally hold regarding another person activates that in them and in you. When you resist, fight, or curse, you reinforce the energy of opposition, making it denser, more stubborn, more dangerous. The law of mind is clear. What you resist persists. What you bless is transmuted. A literal blessing instantly changes the relationship, even if you do not see immediate surface results. When you bless from the heart, not mechanically or as an attempt at spiritual manipulation, but as a genuine recognition of the good in another, you create an invisible bridge through which love can flow. Tension dissolves, hostility loosens, resentment disarms. The blessing works first in you, freeing you from the poison of anger, and then in the other, slowly removing the mental obstacles that bind them to error. Remember, blessing is not an egocentric command to make the other change for your comfort. It is not, I bless this enemy so they stop bothering me, but rather, I bless the Christ in you. I invoke the good within you. I wish you peace, light, clarity, and healing exactly where you most need it, even if I do not know it. There is a profound difference between true blessing and spiritual manipulation. True blessing liberates. Spiritual manipulation seeks control, disguised as benevolence. Spiritual science teaches, when you bless, you are blessed. The channel through which the blessing flows is the first to be healed. Thus, the law of mind works in both directions. By freeing another, you free yourself. By calling forth the good in another, you strengthen the good in yourself. This is why Jesus, in the supreme moment of his mission, could bless those who crucified him. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. That is the ultimate spiritual governance. No resentment, no desire for revenge, no resistance, only the liberating power of blessing. How then do we bless in practice? Let me offer a simple yet powerful formula. When you think of your opponent, the one who has hurt or contradicted you, silently or softly say, I bless the Christ in you. I wish for perfect good to manifest in your life. May God's peace, light, and love heal all that causes you pain. I release you, and I release myself. Make this a daily, non-negotiable practice. Each day, choose a person who disagrees, who has offended you, or with whom you have conflict, and dedicate your conscious blessing to them. Make a list of your opponents, large or small, near or far, and spend a few minutes blessing each one. Watch with awe as your own energy changes, as resentment dissolves, and as old wounds begin to heal. Over time, the other may change, but even if they do not, you will have gained inner freedom that no conflict can take away. Before beginning the practice, perform this spiritual preparation to overcome resentment. Father, I acknowledge my pain, my anger, my wound. I do not deny them, but neither do I cling to them as my identity. I choose to release. Give me the strength to bless from the heart, not from appearance. Help me see the good where my ego threatens. Make me a channel of your blessing, so it is, and so it shall be. During conflict itself, when tension rises and the temptation to respond in anger assaults you, pause for a moment, breathe and silently say, I bless you in this moment. The good in me greets the good in you. You do not need to speak it aloud. Your sincerely held thought is enough to begin the transmutation. Track the changes you observe as you systematically practice blessing. You may first notice changes within yourself. More calm, less anxiety, lighter dreams, fewer impulses to retaliate or seek revenge. Over time, you may perceive small gestures of openness, gentler words, even miraculous reconciliation. Do not seek immediate or external results. True transformation occurs first on the invisible plane. Take the radical challenge for 40 days. Bless each day your most difficult opponent. Do not be surprised if the ego protests, if the mind resists, if it feels impossible. That is the old self, reluctant to release its story. Persevere. The death of the ego is the birth of true power. Be honest. At first, this practice will seem nearly impossible. Genuinely blessing those who hurt you is the highest degree of spiritual mastery. But there is no more direct path to loving governance. There is no more certain proof that your authority comes from love, not ego. Close this chapter with a preservation prayer. Father, today the Son blesses where before he condemned. Today I invoke peace, light, and good in all who contradict me, who offend me, who have hurt me. I know that by blessing I free myself and free the other. Make me a channel of your blessing even when my ego resists. So it is, and so it shall be. Make blessing your shield, your spear, and your medicine. Nothing can indefinitely resist the power of a soul that blesses without reservation. This is how one governs with love. This is how all conflicts dissolve. This is how the kingdom of God first manifests within you, then around you, and finally in the entire world. Chapter 7. Authority without domination. True leadership. There exists a deeply rooted illusion in the collective consciousness that has contaminated families, institutions, and entire nations. The belief that true leadership is synonymous with domination. The world admires the strong leader who imposes, demands, controls, subjugates, and confuses this with legitimate authority. Yet spiritual truth is radically different. Authentic leadership does not dominate. It guides, inspires, elevates, and above all, serves. The difference between authority and domination is like the difference between the sun and a shadow. Legitimate authority emanates from love and wisdom. It does not need to proclaim itself, justify itself, or prove its power. It is silent like the force of gravity. Invisible, yet all things obey it. Those who possess true authority rarely name it because it flows from their inner being, from their peace, their clear vision, and absolute trust in the good. It is an authority that attracts voluntary obedience, not forced submission. Domination, by contrast, always reveals inner insecurity. The one who dominates must control because they fear losing. Their power is armor forged from fear, a mask hiding inner fragility. They are the tyrant who demands service, the boss who imposes rules without understanding, the parent who instills fear instead of respect, the spiritual guide who requires adoration. All these models are variations of the same disease: ego, fear, and scarcity. Spiritual authority never demands, never humiliates, never claims what belongs solely to universal good. It does not seek applause or blind obedience. True authority feels responsible for the growth and freedom of those around it. Its joy is not to be served but to serve. This was demonstrated by the Master when he washed the feet of his disciples, performing the most humble task reserved for the least of servants. That scene, so contrary to worldly logic, is the crown of spiritual leadership. Supreme power expressed in absolute tenderness. Spiritual authority attracts voluntary obedience because it connects directly with the inner Christ of every human being. It inspires. It does not impose. It moves others from within, not from without. Those who serve out of love are remembered, followed, and admired long after they have departed. Those who dominate are feared while their power lasts and forgotten, or cursed, once it is gone. This is the law. Only love leaves eternal traces. Here lies a fundamental paradox. Those who seek power do not deserve it. Those who do not seek it receive it. The true leader never asked to be one, never aimed to dominate. Simply their inner light, coherence, dedication, and vision of good made them a natural center of trust and guidance. This occurs in nature as well. The tallest tree does not compete, does not push. It simply grows straight and provides shade. All creatures naturally seek its protection. Make an honest self-examination. Ask yourself, am I a leader or a dominator? Do I seek to inspire or to control? Does serving bring me joy, or do I desire to be served? Does my authority generate trust and growth, or fear and submission? This is the most radical test you can take, and it is wise to repeat it periodically. Observe the figures of authority in your life: parents, teachers, bosses, spiritual leaders. What type were they? What example do you wish to perpetuate, and which will you cut forever? Practice servant leadership in your immediate environment. The position you hold or the size of the group matters little. Seek one concrete opportunity today to serve those you lead. It may be a small act, listening attentively, helping without being asked, yielding the floor, recognizing someone else's merit, easing a burden. You will discover that service does not diminish you. It elevates you, awakening natural gratitude and trust in those around you. Perform a spiritual preparation to release the need to dominate. Father, today I release all will to power that comes from the ego. I renounce the desire to control, to impose, to inspire fear. Make me a channel of your true authority, able to guide with tenderness, inspire with humility, and correct with love. Grant me joy in serving. So it is, and so it shall be. Exercise the practice of leadership through inspiration. Do not impose order, invite it. Suggest, explain, listen, build agreements, share vision. When the group senses that their well-being is your priority, they will willingly follow your guidance with joy and freedom. Study the lives of historical leaders, those who governed with love and those who ruled through force and fear. Analyze their fruits, their legacies, their consequences. The tyrant leaves ruins. The loving leader leaves disciples, creators, and free souls. Make a solemn commitment to lead only from spiritual authority. Remind yourself each day, true strength is absolute power combined with absolute tenderness. The weak must harden. The strong can afford compassion. Close this chapter with a profound declaration. I renounce all domination. I embrace authority that flows from love, wisdom, and service. My leadership is not control. It is inspiration. Not fear, but trust. Not ego, but spirit. Today, wherever I go, I will lead only for the good. So it is, and so it shall be. Only in this way does leadership become a divine art, and the world begins to resemble the kingdom of God. Make your life, in the circle you occupy, a living school of authority without domination. Then, and only then, will you have followers who are free, and therefore truly yours. Chapter 8. Discipline as discipleship teaching instead of punishing. The art of discipline, in its highest sense, has been tragically distorted throughout the centuries. Today, when the word discipline is spoken, the mind almost immediately associates it with punishment, pain, repression, severity, and fear. Yet at its root lies a forgotten truth. Discipline comes from disciple, and a disciple means learner. Authentic discipline is the art of forming disciples, of accompanying others in the learning of life, of facilitating the encounter between human will and divine law. It is teaching, not punishing, forming, not breaking, elevating, not humiliating. How did this corruption occur? Why did discipline degrade from being a school of the soul to becoming an instrument of control and pain? The answer is simple. When humanity forgot the inner meaning of growth and began to value blind obedience above understanding, discipline emptied of spirit and filled with fear. Thus arose the harmful idea that instruction must be forced, and that pain is the supreme teacher, that one only learns through suffering. Nothing could be further from the truth of the Spirit. Pain only generates fear and resentment. A child corrected through violence learns, yes, but not what the adult intends. They learn to fear, to lie, to hide, to deceive. They learn to avoid punishment, not to embrace truth. They learn to survive, not to live fully. Punishment, far from forming character, sows wounds that will bleed into all the relationships of life. True discipline is formative. Its goal is not blind obedience, but understanding, responsibility, and the awakening of the desire to do good. Teaching responsibility without inflicting pain is not only possible, it is the only legitimate way to form free and mature human beings. The human soul, when it understands, naturally rises toward order, beauty, and righteousness. Disciplinary methods that respect human dignity begin from an immovable principle. All correction must be done from love for the good of the corrected, not from wounded pride or the desire to control. Limits are set not to satisfy the adult's ego, but to help the disciple discover their own inner boundaries, to experience the natural consequences of their actions, and to grow from within. Here lies the radical difference between consequence and punishment. A natural consequence is life's law in action. If a child leaves their coat in the rain, the coat gets wet. If they interrupt, they lose information. If they lie, they lose trust. These consequences teach without humiliating, show without hurting, and form without breaking. Punishment, by contrast, is an external imposition, usually born of anger or frustration. Because you did this, now you lose recess. Because you forgot, I punish you with silence. Punishment breaks, but it does not teach. Natural consequence educates with gentleness, imitates reflection, calls forth learning. Do you want to form character? Do it with love, not hardness. Character is forged like steel, with gentle and repeated fire, not brutal blows. Patient love that explains, accompanies, supports, and gives example is the forge of great souls. The adult who disciplines lovingly becomes a mirror of dignity. They show that it is possible to correct without humiliating, to set limits without hurting, to demand without breaking. I propose a radical exercise. Take your concept of discipline and rewrite it from scratch. Forget what you received if it was punitive. Ask yourself, what do I really want to teach when I discipline? Do I want to sow fear or understanding? Do I want outward obedience or inner transformation? Write a new definition. Discipline is the art of cultivating the highest good, teaching the laws of life with love, clarity, and patience. Adapt methods to each age and context, but never lose the guiding principle. Every human being deserves respect, even when they err. No mistake is so grave that it justifies humiliation. No fault so deep that it merits the breaking of the soul. Before correcting, perform a spiritual preparation. Father, make me a channel of your wisdom. May my words build up, not destroy. May my discipline teach, not punish. Grant me patience, clarity, and humility. Make me a mirror of your perfect love. So it is, and so it shall be. Practice teaching through understanding rather than through pain. Explain the reasons behind rules. Share the consequences of actions. Invite reflection on what occurred. If emotion dominates you, wait. Never correct in the heat of anger. Loving discipline is firm yet never violent. Logical consequences applied without emotional charge teach more than 1,000 sermons. Conduct a comparative study in your own experience. Recall occasions when you were corrected with love and those when you were punished. Which produced growth? Which left wounds? Apply this analysis to your methods of educating, leading, and guiding. Decide today to transform your current disciplinary practices. If you fall into old habits, stop, ask forgiveness, and correct the course. Humility itself is a teacher. Close this chapter with a consecration prayer. Today I choose to discipline as Christ teaches, with patience, with tenderness, with firmness born of love. I renounce punishment and embrace teaching. May my life be a school of dignity, where correction is a seed of freedom. So it is, and so it shall be. Thus discipline becomes discipleship. Fear is not sown, but trust. Subjects are not formed, but disciples of good. Love teaches from within, and character becomes a temple, not a prison. Make each correction an invitation to growth, and you will see souls flourish where once there was only fear. This is the true victory of the Spirit. Chapter 9. Correcting behavior, not the person separating identity from action. The ability to correct without harming is the mark of true spiritual authority. The most common and simultaneously most devastating error is confusing a human being's identity with their temporary actions. This confusion has caused deep havoc in the human soul. Insecure adults, broken children, fractured relationships, entire societies where shame reigns and hope withers. All because instead of rejecting the error, we rejected the person. Instead of correcting behavior, we condemned the being. Saying you are bad is an act of spiritual violence. It is a sentence that implants a label in the heart and mind, a condemnation that the person carries like an invisible weight throughout life. In contrast, saying what you did was harmful is an affirmation of love and responsibility. The first destroys dignity, the second preserves it, while pointing out the mistake. The difference is vast, and it truly marks the boundary between transformative love and destructive violence. How can we preserve essential dignity while correcting a specific error? Observe the language of Christ. When Jesus encountered the woman caught in adultery, he did not define her by her mistake, nor did he label her by her past. His message was, "Neither do I condemn you. Go and sin no more." He separated the act from the identity, offering forgiveness and the possibility of a new beginning. Similarly, with Peter, who denied him, there was no label, no reproach, only trust renewed and responsibility entrusted. To the thief on the cross, he did not recount his crimes, but promised paradise, looking past the error to the true identity beneath. The language we use is the most powerful tool for loving correction. Use words that identify the concrete behavior, not the essence of the being. Say, "This action is not right. This behavior causes harm. This needs to change." Avoid identity labels. You are bad, you are useless, you are a failure. These phrases not only fail to correct, they wound, harm, and perpetuate error by making it a destiny. When we attack identity, we create permanent wounds. The child who repeatedly hears, "You are disobedient," eventually believes their nature is to disobey. The adult who was called clumsy acts with insecurity and fear of error. A soul marked by external labels withdraws, hardens, rebels, or resigns, but rarely transforms. Correcting actions without condemning people is an art learned with humility and vigilance. It requires constant awareness. Before correcting, ask yourself, am I addressing the behavior or the being? Am I helping to elevate or dragging them deeper into the mud? Practice transforming your corrections. Make a list of 20 phrases you've said or heard in the past where identity was attacked. Transform them, one by one, into behavioral observations. For example, "You're lazy. Today you didn't complete your task. I know you can do better. You're messy. This area needs more order. How can we achieve that together? You're selfish. This action didn't consider others. How could it be done differently?" Make a radical commitment to remove negative labels from your language. Do it in your family, at work, and with yourself. Observe how the atmosphere changes, how relationships soften, how dignity blooms again. Go further, practice conscious separation. When facing someone who has erred, make the effort to see behind the behavior the divine person, the hidden Christ. Internally, repeat, "I see your Christ, not your mistakes." Make this phrase a daily meditation, repeating it until it becomes automatic. If you have harmed someone by attacking their identity, perform a healing treatment. "Father, I acknowledge my error. I release this person and free myself from all labels. I call forth their Christ to manifest. I now plant words of life, restoration, and trust. So it is, and so it shall be." Develop the technique of specific correction. Describe the concrete behavior, point out the consequence, and offer the opportunity for change. Never confuse the error with the person. Be precise. You did something harmful, but you are not your mistake. This distinction can save a life, restore a relationship, and return hope. And if you ever confuse them, if you condemn the being for their behavior, forgive yourself. We have all erred in this. Forgiveness cleanses, frees, and restores balance. Close this chapter with a prayer of renewal. "Christ in me, help me correct only the error, never the identity. May my words heal, build, and liberate. May I always see the possible good, never permanent mistakes. I see your Christ, not your errors. So it is, and so it shall be." Transformative love always sees beyond the mask. Separate the action from the essence, the error from the being, the temporary from the eternal. Thus, correction becomes an instrument of resurrection, not crucifixion. Thus, the kingdom of God becomes visible, one restored soul at a time. Chapter 10. Governing as parents, teachers, and leaders. Specific applications. True love is eminently practical. It is not enough to proclaim principles. They must be embodied in daily life, in the concrete roles we occupy as parents, teachers, bosses, community leaders, or public servants. Governing with perfect love is not an abstract theory. It is a specific, demanding, and glorious task. Here you will find practical guidance to fulfill the role of authority, because all legitimate authority is essentially service and an opportunity to elevate others. Family, the first and deepest laboratory of the soul. Parenting with perfect love is the art of accompanying children in awakening their inner Christ. Spiritual fathers and mothers do not seek to shape their children in the image of their own deficiencies, but to cultivate in them the unique and irreproducible divine seed God has placed. They correct from love, never fear. They know that every threat sows rebellion, every punishment hides resentment, every shout plants insecurity. They practice loving correction according to age. For small children, clear boundaries and loving presence. For adolescents, trust, dialogue, and example. For young adults, openness to error and restitution. They never tire of repeating, "I love you," even when correction is needed. "You are not your mistake. You are my child, a reflection of the eternal Christ." Education. The spiritual teacher is a facilitator, not a tyrant. They do not transmit fear, but wisdom. They do not impose authority, but inspire trust. No child learns well under threat or humiliation. The classroom must be a workshop of dignity, not a factory of blind obedience. Discipline is applied with firm yet tender limits, never punitive punishment. Rules are clear, natural consequences are explained, and dialogue is constant. Active listening, open-ended questions, and sincere praise are practiced. Each child is seen as a carrier of a unique destiny. Errors are teaching opportunities, not reasons for shame. Business and work environments. Spiritual leadership is management without fear. The loving boss never rules through intimidation, sarcasm, or suspicion. They know that fear paralyzes, while love mobilizes. They encourage shared responsibility, recognition, and honesty. Their protocol is inspiration. Share vision, trust, delegate, support. Correction is done directly, without diminishing dignity or speaking behind someone's back. A team led with love produces more abundant results because loyalty is earned, not bought. Community and religious leadership. Authentic guidance rejects all manipulation. A spiritual leader does not attract followers for personal glorification, but to free others toward autonomy. They do not rely on fear, emotional blackmail, or promises of exclusivity. Only universal, inclusive, patient, and humble love is trustworthy. They imitate, not compel, serve, not demand, listen, not indoctrinate. Political leadership. Though it may seem distant, even political governance can and should aspire to spiritual principles. A public servant who sees each citizen as a brother, who seeks the common good rather than personal gain, and who acts with transparency and compassion, plants the seeds of a healthy society. A spiritual politician understands that justice is not revenge, authority is not privilege, and law without love is tyranny in disguise. Adapt these universal principles to your cultural context, but never betray them. Love is not naivety. It is the most practical and powerful force in the world. When confronted with indifference, rebellion, or abuse, the answer is never to harden your heart or return violence for violence. Instead, elevate the standard, set clearer boundaries, treat others more tenderly, act more firmly in faith, and respond with transparency. Perfect love is slow to anger, quick to forgive, and steadfast in hope. Practical exercises in each role. Parents. Before correcting, breathe, lower your voice, kneel to the child's height, speak clearly and briefly, explain the natural consequence. Do not invent punishments. Always follow correction with an embrace. Teachers. Begin each day with an affirmation. Today I will see the Christ in everyone. Use questions more than orders. Lead by example, not by sermon. Recognize effort more than results. Correct privately, praise publicly. Business leaders. Hold meetings where everyone can speak. Practice gratitude. In conflict, seek direct dialogue. Encourage continuous learning. Take responsibility when mistakes happen. Share credit when success comes. Community and religious leaders include, do not exclude. Lead by service. Speak from experience, not dogma. Make yourself available to listen, not only to teach. Governors and politicians, pray daily before decisions. Father, make me a servant of all. Let your justice and love guide my mind and words. Be transparent. Seek the common good. Let each action build trust. Practical tools, family role play. Rehearse loving correction together. Classroom manual. Manage conflicts without punishment or shouting. Business action plan. Implement recognition and natural consequences. Personal spiritual practice. Today I act only from perfect love. If I falter, I correct myself with humility. So it is, and so it shall be. No situation is too difficult for perfect love to transform. Where old methods fail, spiritual governance begins. Be patient. Transformation is gradual, but the fruit is eternal. Closing prayer of dedication. Father, in the role you have entrusted to me, parent, teacher, leader, servant, make me an instrument of your love. Give me clarity to correct, patience to teach, humility to guide, and joy to serve. Let your kingdom become visible in every relationship, every task, every word. So it is, and so it shall be. Make your life a constant application of the love you have learned. Step by step, the governance of the world becomes a reflection of the governance of God. Chapter 11. When love must be firm, necessary boundaries. There is a very common and dangerous error in the modern understanding of love, believing that to love means to allow everything, tolerate the intolerable, always yield to others, and erase all boundaries in the name of compassion. But love without limits is not love. It is codependency, disguised fear, the ego afraid of losing approval rather than listening to the voice of the Christ who protects and guides. Authentic love, the love that heals and transforms, knows how to say no with the same peace and firmness as it says yes. True love cares for both one's own dignity and that of others. Allowing everything is not love. It is spiritual negligence, a renunciation of responsibility. A soul that truly loves sets clear boundaries because it knows that excessive permissiveness generates chaos, resentment, abuse, and pain. Where there are no limits, the soul goes astray, mistakes multiply, and relationships become poisoned. Love that never dares to say no ends up participating, even passively, in the other's self-destruction. There are situations where absolute firmness is the only possible response. In cases of addiction, abuse, or physical or emotional danger, true love must rise like a wall, not lie like a doormat. It must know how to withdraw, separate, and even say goodbye if necessary to prevent greater harm. Allowing abuse is not love, it is complicity. Constantly rescuing someone from the consequences of their actions is not mercy, it is weakness. Sometimes the deepest love consists of letting go, allowing the other to hit rock bottom so they can be reborn from their own ashes. Firm boundaries and punitive punishment must not be confused. Punishment arises from the desire to make someone pay, to hurt in response to harm, to discharge accumulated resentment. The loving boundary, however, comes from clear awareness of what is healthy for both. It seeks to protect, not hurt, to heal, not take revenge. A boundary may hurt in the moment, but it frees and saves in the long term. In some cases, separation is the most loving act possible, stepping away from a toxic relationship, distancing oneself from someone who refuses to change, refusing to be complicit in harm. These are difficult but often absolutely necessary decisions. True love cannot flourish where one constantly sacrifices integrity, peace, and dignity. Firm love dares to endure the pain of separation if it plants the possibility of future redemption. It is vital to distinguish between the hardness of the ego and the firmness of love. The ego delights in punishment, revels in superiority, enjoys the power of saying no out of pride. Love suffers when setting limits but sustains them because it knows they will bring life in the long term. Authentic love does not constantly rescue, not because it does not feel the other's suffering, but because it understands that interfering eternally in another's learning robs them of the opportunity to awaken and change. Practical exercise. Identify areas and relationships in your life where you have been too soft, where you have allowed what your heart knew was destructive, where you have confused compassion with infinite tolerance. Make a list of situations and ask yourself for each. Was this love or fear of losing, guilt, or facing the other's anger? Criteria for discerning when extreme firmness is love are usually clear. When what you allow harms your dignity, health, or peace. When your tolerance perpetuates error or the other's self-destruction. When you have explained, dialogued, offered help, and the situation has not changed. When your presence only enables abuse, manipulation, or deceit. There, a firm no saves. Practice saying no without guilt when love requires it. Prepare beforehand with a prayer. Christ in me, give me the strength to set firm and clear boundaries. May my no be a channel of your protective love, not of my fear or ego. Make me an instrument of your wisdom. So it is, and so it shall be. Overcoming codependency disguised as love is a profound spiritual task. Recognize the impulse to rescue, to yield, to avoid conflict, to over-sacrifice. You are not responsible for anyone's learning, only for your integrity and example. The technique of firm boundaries communicated with compassion is direct and clear. Speak from the I, not accusation. Explain your boundary and its reason calmly. Do not defend or justify. Your dignity is reason enough. Hold the boundary even if the other person becomes angry or tries to manipulate. Then protect your own heart. Setting boundaries may hurt, but it is necessary. Study cases of loving interventions that saved lives. Parents who refused money to an addicted child, spouses who separated before being completely lost, friends who stepped away to allow the other to grow. In all of them, pain was the seed of new life. Make the commitment to real love. Where a boundary is necessary, be firm. Where separation is the path, walk it. Where perpetual rescue perpetuates harm, choose to let go. The Christ within you will know how to discern each situation. Do not fear the other's anger or momentary loneliness. Perfect love sustains and heals all pain. Closing courageous prayer. Today I choose firm love. I set boundaries where the good requires them, even if it hurts. I release the illusion that allowing everything is love. I trust in the strength of the Christ in me and in the other. I protect, I care, I separate if necessary. Thus I sow life and dignity, so it is and so it shall be. Remember, sometimes the greatest love is the one that steps aside, allows life to teach, and trusts the seed of God within the other, even if it must be seen to grow from a distance. Firmness is the hidden face of perfect love. Embrace it without fear. Chapter 12. The Revolution of Love Transforming Entire Systems. The time has come to lift our gaze and contemplate the horizon of a new humanity. Everything said so far, every principle, every practice, every renunciation of fear in favor of love, is not only for the edification of the individual. The ultimate purpose of loving governance is far greater: the radical transformation of social systems. It is the silent revolution that can, drop by drop, flood families, schools, businesses, communities, and ultimately entire nations. This is not a distant ideal nor naive utopia, but a practical goal, an urgent call, a destiny already beating within the very heart of humanity. Imagine for a moment a social system where love, not fear, is the guiding principle. Imagine families where children do not fear their parents, where correction never harms dignity, where forgiveness is customary, tenderness is discipline, and a no is an act of protection, not rejection. Picture schools where teachers inspire, not intimidate, where mistakes are opportunities for growth and not seeds of shame, where each student is seen as a unique soul deserving patience, trust, and hope. Visualize businesses where authority does not oppress but liberates potential, where loyalty arises from respect, not fear, and where leadership is measured by the ability to serve and inspire, not by the loudness of one's voice or the threat of dismissal. Now imagine communities where diversity is a treasure, not a threat, where disagreement is a seed of dialogue, not enmity, where conflicts are resolved with restorative justice, active compassion, transparency, and shared purpose. Picture a nation where politics is not a battlefield for egos, but a workshop for the common good, where public service is a true priesthood of self-giving, where punishment is the exception and reintegration the rule, where power is administered with humility and government has the soul of a loving teacher. Is this possible? Yes, but only if individual change precedes systemic change. The transformation of systems can never be imposed from the outside, nor achieved through empty decrees. Systems are living organisms made of individuals. Change the cell, change the body, change the heart of man, and laws, customs, and institutions will follow. A transformed leader transforms an entire organization. A healed family seeds a better community. A violence-free school shapes generations of new citizens. The revolution of love is silent because it does not shout, crush, or impose. It is like the growth of a root underground, hidden, persistent, invincible. Ordinary people in ordinary places, awakening to loving governance, are the ones sowing the new world. Do not wait for the powerful to take the first step. The critical mass of transformed hearts is what eventually tips the scale. Obstacles are real. Fear is strong. The habit of punishment is deeply ingrained. There will be ridicule, resistance, even fierce opposition. But every current begins with a single drop that refuses to follow the usual course. Your role in this transformation is to begin exactly where you are. Do not wait for ideal conditions, external authority, or anyone's permission. Your home, your classroom, your workplace, your street, your circle are the perfect fields for sowing. The domino effect of multiplied love is more powerful than you imagine. Every time you choose tenderness over hardness, correct without humiliating, bless instead of cursing, you break an invisible chain, heal an ancestral wound, and plant a future. The revolution of love is unstoppable because, although slow, it is the only one that never produces resentment or destruction. Exercise. Imagine your sphere of influence completely governed by love. What changes would occur? How would your children, students, colleagues, neighbors respond? Make a strategic plan. Decide concrete steps to implement loving governance. A loving correction each day, an apology when you fail, a blessing for those who oppose you, a healthy boundary when necessary. Practice influence by example, not preaching. Let your life speak before your words. Do not seek to convince, seek to inspire. Love convinces by presence, not discourse. Multiply these principles. Teach others first by example, then by word when requested. Do not proselytize. Do not impose, plant and trust. Every soul awakened to the governance of love is a beacon of light that inevitably, sooner or later, illuminates its surroundings. Make a lifelong commitment. Swear before God and yourself to govern always from love, even when you fall, even when the world insists on the old song of fear. Rise each time, cleanse your mind, renew your vow. Today I will govern, serve, and correct only from perfect love. Here is a final meditation to close this path. Close your eyes and visualize your life, your home, your work, your community, your country, and the entire world enveloped in the light of perfect love. See families where peace reigns, schools where trust flourishes, businesses serving the good, governments where power is tenderness and justice. See hearts healing, wounds closing, walls falling, souls embracing. Know that your contribution is humble, but know it matters. Today you are a healthy cell in the body of humanity. So it is, and so it shall be. I do not promise instant transformation of the world, but by experience and faith, I assure you that every person who governs with love in their sphere makes the kingdom of God real on earth. The critical mass will come, and the social body, when ready, will awaken to a new life. Do your part. The revolution of love is heard exactly where you are. The story, yours and everyone's, depends on your decision to love here and now. Thus the Christ governs, thus the world transforms. So it is.